Hey everybody, this is Julie Quinn here, and what you see in front of you is the syllabus, and on the syllabus you will see the gradable, not the gradable table, but the schedule and due dates for our classes condensed 8-week sessions. So by the end of today, you'll be submitting the 4-5 quiz and the 4-6 project. We're finishing Module 4, and we're moving into the last 2 weeks of the course. Keep in mind, the course ends July 10, and no late assignments will be accepted after the end of the term. Okay? Please do not wait until the last day of class to do all your work, especially if you have technical issues. And for Module 4, late work during weeks 1 through 7 will be assessed a 15% late penalty. So if you do not submit your project, for example, your 4-6 project for a couple of days, you're going to lose a lot of value on those assignments. So pay particularly close attention to these due dates. Note as well, you have a final exam that we do the last week of class while you're finishing your readings. And so let's take a look at the module overview. We're focusing on contemporary short story. We're talking about a lot of societal shift since the 60s and 70s to now. That's a nice sort of swath of time though. We're talking about diversity of influences, and what you'll notice as well in these texts is that you're going to find texts that are not always written in English. Isabel Allens and of Claire we created is a text in translation. We're reading the English version. But remember that sometimes texts can shift when they are interpreted through the lens of somebody else. And so we're getting that interpreted version of a lens text. We're going to be reading Happy Endings, Augie Wren's Christmas Story, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings. And sometimes you'll notice that we've got audio. We've got Alice Walker's Everyday Use, and we've got that in audio as well. It looks like maybe I'm going to double check all of the links just to make sure they're working. And if not, before the week starts tomorrow, I'll have a supplement in there. You'll notice we're even going to explore Salman Rushdie. We're going to have opportunities to explore just a lot of different authors that move away from what you would consider the white man's canon that students of my age who grew up in the 1970s, 1980s tended to get. So some of these texts are longer, some of them are shorter. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 9. I would do, maybe 2 a day. Take a break, do another 2. You'll be able to knock these out really quickly. So go back into your modules for a second, and let's take a look at the module discussions that are popping up. The first one will be due earlier on. So even though Alice Walker's story Everyday Use appears later in the list, you've got to read that ahead so you're prepared for this discussion. That's the discussion for the first part of the module. The focus on everyday use. And then as we go into the second discussion, it's a course in self-evaluation. This is just as important as the discussions on any individual reading, because it's interesting for me to see through your details how your knowledge base about the short story grew. If you just summarize a short story, that's not showing me how you're reading into. Remember, there's a reading of a text, what the text says, and then there's an undercurrent of what does the text actually mean, right? Highlight your favorite short story. Talk about what you learned through analysis. And what I'd be interested in seeing there is a discussion of particular terms that you're now applying to movies, that you're applying to poetry, that you're applying to music. I think it'd be really interesting to see how you take these terms and you apply it to creative works. You could talk about theme in a painting, for example. So there's a lot of crossover between the concepts and ideas that we explore in literature and in our world, right? I am curious about this medium of online learning. I think it's really hard for some students to be able to do this work well when you don't see your professor live every week. It's really hard on me too, because I don't get to see you every week. I don't get to play off of your ideas in a live class where your questions get answered the moment they pop up. Okay? I'm curious about how you feel about course design. I did not design this class myself, and I have my own ideas about what I think worked really well and what may be refined. And your ideas are taken into consideration. So it would be really cool, especially adding different types of project focus or stories that you felt belong in a course like this. And let me know about your experiences. 2 substantial paragraphs answering several of the questions, but you don't have to answer them all. But this just gives you sort of an understanding of my interest in how you really learned. Okay, so those are the discussions for Module 5, 1 this upcoming week, 1 the next week. Now, let's take a quick look at the contemporary short story project. Okay. You've got some options. Look at all these different options. So you get a chance to connect with the texts that enraged you, that you felt were passionate and powerful, that there's some sort of connection. Okay. You only have to do one project on one story. You could write about Allende. You could write about Atwood. You could write about Raymond Carver. And by the way, Cathedral is considered to be the quintessential short story that exists in the world. I mean, certainly from a Western perspective. I'm not sure that I agree with that, but it certainly has that reputation. So I'm curious to see how students would respond to a creative response to Cathedral. Okay, so we've got Sandra Cisneros, we've got Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and you can do presentations, essays, creative writings, but choose one and remember to pay attention to the grading rubric. Even with the creative, I still consider Emily formatting on the first page. So you have the opportunity to sort of stretch your wings a little bit and play around with these ideas. And at the beginning of week 8, we're moving into week 7 now. But at the beginning of week 8, I will also give you some tips and tricks for the final exam. So we are moving into the contemporary short story. I hope you really enjoy these texts. And I imagine you may have seen 1 or 2. For those of you that are really sort of literati, like you may have seen Cathedral, or you may have read different texts from Sandra Cisneros or from Alice Walker. But give yourself a chance to really grow with these texts, listen to them in different mediums. So listening to it, maybe seeing a stage play on a short, and then reading it, and you get a sort of a chance to absorb the depth of the text even more. Reach out as you have questions across the week, and I look forward to chatting with you and creating some more video discussions as the week progresses.